Welcome to the UFO Files. I'm your host, Ben Carter, and in today's episode, we're stepping into the shadowy world of one of the most persistent and unexplained aerial phenomena of our time. Vast, silent, and jet black, they glide through the night skies, massive triangles with glowing edges and no visible means of propulsion. Witnessed across continents and decades, they seem to defy physics and human engineering. The question is, who or what is flying them? The modern obsession with black triangle UFOs began long before high-definition phone cameras and social media feeds could capture their eerie presence. These objects trace their notoriety back to the 1980s, though scattered reports exist even earlier. Yet it was over the skies of Belgium between 1989 and 1990 that the phenomenon ignited global interest and ushered these mysterious craft into public consciousness. In the autumn of 1989, the small town of Eupen in eastern Belgium became the epicenter of a wave of sightings. Residents reported seeing enormous, triangular-shaped objects silently drifting across the sky. These were not fast-moving meteors or traditional aircraft. Witnesses described them as massive, larger than a football field, with 3 bright lights on each corner and a pulsating red light at the center. Unlike typical aircraft, the objects made no sound. They hovered, accelerated, and changed direction with movements that defied conventional flight dynamics. Entire families saw them, police officers saw them, and soon thousands across the country would. By early 1990, the sightings had spread beyond Eupen. Cities like Liège and Namur were inundated with similar reports. The Belgian Air Force, inundated with credible accounts, took the unusual step of investigating. On the night of March 30th, 1990, 2 F-16 fighters were scrambled to intercept an unidentified object tracked on radar. Ground-based radar at Glons and radar on the jets confirmed the presence of something in the airspace, something that seemed to toy with the jets, accelerating and decelerating rapidly, diving and climbing at impossible speeds. Despite repeated attempts, the pilots never visually locked onto the object. The radar data, however, was compelling. At one point, the target went from 1,000 to 5,000 feet in a matter of seconds. The Belgian Air Force released this data publicly, along with statements acknowledging the legitimacy of the sightings. The move was rare. Governments seldom comment, let alone confirm, unexplained aerial events. This transparency sparked a global conversation, but Belgium was not alone. Just a few years later, similar triangular objects were spotted above Phoenix, Arizona, during what would become one of the most widely witnessed UFO events in American history, the Phoenix Lights of 1997. Again, a massive craft, silent and dark, glided above the city. Witnesses estimated it was a mile wide, blotting out stars as it passed overhead. Thousands saw it, including the state's governor, who later admitted he had also witnessed the event. Once more, military explanations failed to satisfy the public. The recurring shape, the triangle, emerged as a pattern. These weren't saucers or lights flitting through the sky. These were structured, angular, solid objects. Unlike the erratic movement of traditional UFOs, the black triangles often moved slowly and deliberately. Some hovered for minutes, completely silent. Others darted away with uncanny speed. They were seen over military bases, nuclear facilities, and remote countryside. The consistency in witness reports across geography and culture was striking. The Cold War era had conditioned the world to fear the sky, missiles, bombers, espionage aircraft. But these black triangles didn't fit that mold. They appeared post-Cold War, in a world no longer polarized by superpowers. They were not aggressive, but they were unsettling. Their presence suggested surveillance, not attack. And despite official denials, few believed they were simply advanced military aircraft. In hindsight, the 1990s marked a turning point. The Black Triangle sightings weren't isolated events, they were global. From the United Kingdom's Rendlesham Forest to rural Texas, these massive flying structures made appearances in dozens of countries. Each new report seemed to echo the same core traits: size, shape, silence, and a baffling disregard for known aerodynamics. By the dawn of the new millennium, black triangles had become a distinct category within the broader UFO phenomenon. Unlike the chaotic light shows and unpredictable flight paths of traditional sightings, these craft exuded control, intention, and superiority. They didn't stumble across our skies. They arrived and left on their own terms. The earliest well-documented Black Triangle incident in the United States took place on a quiet night in November 1986 over the skies of upstate New York. The witness was a commercial airline pilot flying a routine cargo route for a major carrier. As he approached the airspace near Albany, he noticed something massive on the radar, something that wasn't supposed to be there. Moments later, through the cockpit window, he spotted it with his own eyes. A huge, silent triangular craft gliding below his flight path, moving against the wind without any visible means of propulsion. The pilot later described the object as having 3 brilliant white lights at its corners, arranged in a perfect triangle. It had no tail, no wings, and emitted no sound, just a low-frequency hum that vibrated the aircraft slightly as it passed beneath. His co-pilot saw it too, and the onboard radar recorded an unidentified contact. When they reported it to air traffic control, they were told nothing was in their vicinity. The object soon vanished into the night, leaving no trace except the lingering sense that something extraordinary had occurred. A similar incident occurred in Illinois in January 2000, and this time it wasn't a fleeting encounter. Multiple police officers from different jurisdictions tracked a massive triangular object as it moved slowly across the sky over several counties. The first call came from a trucker who reported seeing a giant black triangle hovering near Highland, Illinois. As officers responded, they too began witnessing the same object, which they described as the size of a football field, with 3 bright lights and a pulsing red light at the center. It moved silently, slowly, and with precision, hovering, then shooting off with speed that defied logic. Each officer radioed updates as they followed the object from town to town, coordinating across departments. In total, 5 officers from 4 separate police forces gave nearly identical descriptions. They watched it disappear into the night, leaving behind no sonic boom, no trace, and no explanation. The media picked up the story, dubbing it the St. Clair Triangle. It would go on to be one of the most well-documented Black Triangle sightings in American history. Other sightings followed, often clustered in areas near military installations or nuclear facilities. In 2004, residents of Tinley Park, Illinois, saw a massive triangular formation of lights moving silently across the sky. In 2013, witnesses near Kansas City reported an enormous silent triangle flying at low altitude, with one witness claiming it was close enough to make out structural details, flat black panels, a smooth underside, and rounded corners. Perhaps one of the most unsettling aspects of these encounters is the behavior of the craft themselves. Unlike traditional UFOs, which often dart away or vanish in a flash of light, the triangles linger. They cruise slowly, almost proudly, as if unconcerned with being observed. They sometimes follow roads, hover above neighborhoods, or track moving vehicles. Some reports even suggest the objects respond to human activity, dimming their lights when people attempt to photograph them, or drifting away when closely approached. This behavioral pattern has sparked theories that these craft are not extraterrestrial at all, but belong to human intelligence, perhaps secret aerospace projects developed by the US military or private contractors. Yet others argue that the technology on display is still too advanced to be terrestrial. The way these objects accelerate, hover, and move with complete silence challenges our current understanding of physics. Some have even likened their flight behavior to anti-gravity propulsion, a technology that exists only in theory, at least publicly. The sheer number of consistent, credible reports makes it hard to dismiss the phenomenon as a product of imagination or mass hysteria. When airline pilots, police officers, and trained observers independently report the same shape, size, and movement characteristics across decades, the question is no longer whether something is out there, but what exactly it is, and who controls it. As sightings of Black Triangle craft increased throughout the 1990s and 2000s, so too did efforts to investigate them, both formally and informally. Civilian research organizations, aerospace analysts, and even a few quiet government insiders began to dig deeper into the growing mountain of witness reports and radar contacts. The behavior of these craft, while bizarre, was consistent. They rarely displayed aggression. They flew with deliberate slowness, often at low altitudes. They lingered. They observed. One of the most intense investigative efforts came from the National Institute for Discovery Science, or NEDS, founded by billionaire Robert Bigelow in 1995. NITS focused on anomalous aerial phenomena and maintained a database of black triangle sightings across the United States. According to their findings, the highest concentration of sightings occurred near major interstate highways and in proximity to U.S. Air Force bases. This raised intriguing questions. Were the craft monitoring human infrastructure? Were they somehow connected to military operations? Or was their interest in roads, cities, and military sites more strategic? Perhaps even observational, as though mapping or scanning. The timeline of reported activity revealed another pattern. The majority of black triangle encounters occurred between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. These weren't quick glimpses, but sustained sightings, some lasting over 10 minutes. Radar data, when available, often confirmed objects moving at low speed, at altitudes below 5,000 feet. In several cases, police dashcams and security cameras recorded the strange lights, though the triangle shape itself often failed to appear clearly on video. Infrared scans and motion sensors sometimes reacted, but the visuals remained elusive. It was as though the crafts operated just outside the range of typical detection tools. In 1997, Peter Davenport of the National UFO Reporting Center received dozens of calls in a single night, most describing the same massive triangular craft flying silently over the Pacific Northwest. He collected statements from witnesses ranging from farmers to airline employees, each reporting the same massive shape blotting out stars, moving slowly and leaving no trail. Some even claimed to have felt a low vibration in their chest, as if the object emitted a deep, inaudible hum. Meanwhile, the Mutual UFO Network MUFON began compiling its own case files. By the early 2000s, they had logged hundreds of black triangle reports, many with drawings, radar data, and eyewitness maps. Investigators began to note that standard electromagnetic interference was often associated with sightings. Cell phones would fail, car engines would stall, and lights would dim in homes just before or after the objects passed overhead. In one case in rural Virginia, a father and son spotted a low-flying triangle craft that hovered silently over a field near their home. As it passed, every light in their house flickered, and the digital clocks reset to midnight. The event lasted only a few minutes, but they found scorched circles in the field the next morning. The report was investigated but never conclusively explained. The response from official agencies remained muted. The Federal Aviation Administration typically referred inquiries to the military. The military, in turn, either denied involvement or declined to comment. No public investigation was launched, despite the volume of credible reports. The silence only fueled suspicion. Why wouldn't agencies responsible for airspace security address the presence of massive unidentified craft? A handful of civilian analysts attempted to reverse engineer the flight capabilities based on witness testimony. Some proposed electrogravitic propulsion, theorizing that the triangular shape allowed for a kind of directed energy lift. Others suspected ion drives or exotic plasma-based systems, technologies that on paper were decades beyond anything known to be operational. But these theories remained just that, speculative, unsupported by hard data, yet eerily consistent with the behavior of the craft in question. What emerged from these investigations was not proof, but a deeply unsettling consensus. The black triangles were real, they were operating in our skies, and no one in an official capacity seemed willing or able to explain them. Despite the lack of an official narrative, pieces of hard evidence have surfaced over the years. Fragments of radar data, eyewitness sketches, and a handful of photographs and videos. While none have provided absolute proof of the triangle's origin or mechanics, they've added to the credibility of the phenomenon and fueled ongoing investigations by researchers and journalists. One of the most scrutinized pieces of evidence emerged from the Belgian UFO wave in 1990. A now infamous photograph taken by a civilian showed a black triangular object with 3 bright white lights at its corners and a reddish light at the center. The image, known as the Petit Rechan photo, quickly circulated in the media and was considered one of the best photographic captures of a UFO at the time. It was analysed by experts who noted that the light sources did not match any known aircraft configuration, and that the apparent structure of the craft lacked conventional features like engines or control surfaces. For nearly 2 decades, the photo was considered a cornerstone in black triangle research. Then, in 2011, the man who took the image claimed it was a hoax, constructed using a painted model suspended on string. Skeptics felt vindicated. But researchers were left divided. Many pointed out inconsistencies in the confession and questioned the motive and timing. The photograph had already been studied by image analysts, some of whom had found no evidence of tampering. The controversy did not invalidate the many other consistent sightings reported during that same period. Beyond photographs, radar returns have been among the most reliable forms of evidence. During the 1990 Belgian Air Force investigation, both ground-based and airborne radar recorded unusual aerial objects. The tracks showed acceleration patterns that far exceeded the capabilities of any known aircraft, sharp turns without slowing down, sudden vertical climbs, and movement from a complete standstill to high-speed departure in seconds. One radar technician described the object's maneuvers as inhuman. In the 2000 Illinois incident, police dispatch logs and dashcam footage corroborated the timing and path of the object. The police officers' audio recordings captured in real time their astonishment and attempts to track the slow-moving triangle across county lines. The fact that trained law enforcement officers, accustomed to identifying aircraft, weather anomalies, and natural phenomena, were unable to explain what they were seeing gave the event an added weight of credibility. Eyewitness drawings often show remarkable consistency. Whether the sightings occurred in North America, Europe, or South America, descriptions and sketches often depict the same core features: a dark, black or gunmetal grey triangular body, lights on each corner, and a faint hum or complete silence. In some cases, witnesses reported the underside of the craft had complex geometric patterns, grids, ridges, or even recessed panels. While drawings are subjective, the cross-cultural uniformity of the details is difficult to dismiss. Some reports include physical traces. In the early 2000s, farmers in rural Argentina discovered symmetrical burn marks in fields where locals claimed a triangle craft had hovered the previous night. The ground was scorched, with vegetation singed in perfect triangular outlines. Soil samples collected by independent researchers revealed elevated radiation levels and unusual magnetic readings, though skeptics argued natural causes could not be ruled out. Another form of indirect evidence came from power grid fluctuations and electromagnetic disturbances. In several cases across the US and UK, sightings of black triangles coincided with power outages or brownouts in nearby neighbourhoods. In 2004, residents of Suffolk, England, reported a massive triangular craft flying overhead moments before all streetlights in a 4-block radius shut off simultaneously. The power returned minutes after the object disappeared. Though skeptics continue to argue that hoaxes, misidentifications, and psychological suggestion could explain many sightings, the breadth and variety of supporting data have made the black triangle phenomenon hard to dismiss outright. Unlike many other types of UFOs, these objects leave behind tangible traces. They disrupt electronics. They register on radar. They are seen by multiple independent witnesses simultaneously. Their movements and structure challenge known technology. And yet, no government agency has officially acknowledged their existence. No piece of wreckage has been recovered. No clear video has surfaced that shows more than glowing lights in formation. Still, the physical footprint they leave behind, however elusive, continues to build the case that something very real is operating in our skies. Throughout decades of sightings, the official response to the black triangle phenomenon has been characterized less by denial than by silence, a silence that feels coordinated, deliberate, and persistent. Governments, particularly those with advanced aerospace capabilities, have rarely addressed black triangle reports directly. When they do respond, the explanations offered are often vague, incomplete, or contradict eyewitness accounts. Following the Belgian wave of 1989 to 1990, the Belgian Air Force took the unusual step of acknowledging the phenomena. They confirmed radar contact and the scrambling of F-16 jets. Yet they stopped short of offering any definitive conclusions. Instead, their official stance emphasized that they had no knowledge of any military or civilian aircraft capable of the observed maneuvers. They ruled out stealth aircraft from NATO or the United States, noting that no flights were scheduled during the incidents. Despite the openness of their investigation, no follow-up reports were ever published, and the findings quietly disappeared from the spotlight. In the United States, the response has been more opaque. When pressed about large, unidentified flying triangles operating in American airspace, some of them above populated areas, the Pentagon has typically deferred to the Federal Aviation Administration or issued blanket statements about the lack of evidence for extraterrestrial vehicles. Even the highly publicized Phoenix Lights incident in 1997, in which thousands witnessed an enormous black triangular object flying silently over Arizona, was officially attributed to military flare exercises, an explanation that failed to account for the massive craft seen hours earlier, travelling across hundreds of miles in a coordinated path. During the event, then-Governor Fife Samington held a press conference in which he jokingly presented someone in an alien costume, effectively mocking the public's concern. Years later, however, Samington reversed course. In a 2007 interview, he admitted that he had personally seen the massive triangular craft that night, describing it as otherworldly and bigger than anything I've ever seen in the sky. His admission, coming from a political leader and military veteran, only deepened the mystery and the public's distrust of the official narrative. Declassified documents obtained through the Freedom of Information Act have occasionally hinted at deeper knowledge. Files from the Defense Intelligence Agency, NSA, and other branches contain references to sightings of large, low-flying triangular aircraft. Some mention experimental aircraft development, such as the rumoured TR-3B, a black triangle-shaped craft allegedly utilising anti-gravity propulsion. Yet none of these programs have been officially acknowledged, and their connections to real-world sightings remain speculative at best. One of the more revealing leaks came from the now infamous Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, AATIP, a Pentagon project revealed in 2017 that investigated unidentified aerial phenomena. While much of the public attention focused on the tic-tac and gimbal UFO videos released by Navy pilots, insiders familiar with the program have stated that black triangle sightings were among the cases studied. Luis Elizondo, the former director of AATE, has spoken publicly about encounters involving large, silent craft of unknown origin operating with impunity in restricted airspace. Despite mounting evidence and occasional acknowledgements, the overarching government strategy appears to be one of strategic ambiguity. When explanations are given, they often create more confusion than clarity. Flare exercises, atmospheric anomalies, or misidentified aircraft are offered without consideration of the physical characteristics reported, such as silent hovering, right-angle turns, or the sheer size of the objects. There is also the question of jurisdiction. Military branches often defer to civilian aviation authorities, while those same agencies claim no responsibility for monitoring phenomena outside of standard flight operations. Intelligence agencies rarely comment at all. The result is a maze of buck-passing, vague denials, and a conspicuous lack of accountability, despite the clear potential security implications of unidentified craft repeatedly penetrating sensitive airspace. This institutional reluctance to engage publicly has had consequences. It has driven much of the investigation underground, into the hands of civilian researchers, independent scientists, and journalists. In doing so, it has also fueled speculation. If these objects are not ours, why aren't our institutions more concerned? And if they are ours, why keep them secret for decades, even as they're repeatedly seen in public view? The silence has not ended the debate. It has only amplified it. Amid the void left by official agencies, it is the voices of those who have seen these craft up close that give the phenomenon its most human and visceral dimension. Eyewitnesses, from airline pilots and military personnel to police officers and average civilians, have repeatedly described encounters that defy not only expectation but explanation. Their testimonies are often rich in detail, emotionally charged, and alarmingly consistent across decades and borders. In the spring of 1983, a US Air Force radar technician stationed at RF Bentwaters in the United Kingdom claimed to witness a triangular craft hovering silently over the base perimeter during a routine watch. He described it as massive, larger than any known aircraft, and utterly silent, with 3 white lights and a faint glow emanating from its underside. The craft reportedly hovered for several minutes before vanishing in the blink of an eye. The technician's commanding officers allegedly instructed him not to discuss the event, and he was later reassigned without explanation. Though the account was never officially corroborated, it closely mirrors other reports from the same base linked to the Rendlesham Forest incident, already one of the most heavily scrutinized UFO events in European history. Civilian reports have been just as compelling. In 1995, a couple driving along a desolate stretch of I-70 in Colorado pulled over after spotting an enormous triangular object drifting silently above the plains. The man described the craft as so large it filled the entire windshield from edge to edge. The lights on its corners were bright, but not blinding, and its surface appeared matte black, with no visible seams. As it hovered overhead, the car's radio began emitting static, and the engine momentarily sputtered before restarting. The craft moved slowly over their vehicle and then accelerated into the sky with unnatural speed. Neither of them had a camera, and by the time they reached the nearest town, the sky was empty once more. More recent accounts continue to emerge. In 2014, a former commercial pilot submitted a report to the National UFO Reporting Center describing a nighttime encounter near Las Cruces, New Mexico. The pilot, flying at 12,000 feet, observed what initially appeared to be a formation of lights below his aircraft. Upon closer inspection, he realized the lights were attached to a single enormous triangular structure moving silently through the air. There was no response from regional ATC, and no other aircraft were registered in the area. His plane's instruments momentarily malfunctioned, including the altimeter, before returning to normal after the object disappeared from view. Then there are the whistleblowers, individuals who claim to have worked on or around Black Triangle technology and who hint at knowledge beyond the public domain. One such figure, a former aerospace contractor using the pseudonym James, told an independent researcher in 2006 that the triangles are part of a classified surveillance program run by a private defense contractor operating under a Special Access Program, SAP. According to James, the craft utilize advanced propulsion systems based on field manipulation physics, what he vaguely referred to as inertial mass reduction. He declined to provide physical proof, but claimed the technology was not extraterrestrial in origin, rather the product of decades of clandestine engineering and reverse engineering of recovered materials. Other testimonies veer into more speculative territory. A former Army intelligence officer, speaking anonymously, described seeing schematics for a triangular craft during a classified briefing at Fort Belvoir in 2008. He claimed the craft was labelled TR-3B and designed for high-altitude reconnaissance with near-zero acoustic signature. While no such project has ever been publicly confirmed, the TR-3B has become a recurring subject of discussion in conspiracy and aviation circles alike. Despite the anonymity that often surrounds these whistleblower stories, they exhibit a surprising coherence. They describe large, silent, triangular craft equipped with advanced propulsion systems that allow for hovering, sharp-angle maneuvers and near-instant acceleration, all without producing sonic booms or jet noise. They hint at highly compartmentalized projects that exist beyond traditional oversight structures, managed by defense contractors with little to no governmental transparency. The risk taken by many of these witnesses, whether civilians, law enforcement, or former military personnel, is not insignificant. Careers have been jeopardized, credibility questioned, in some cases, lives disrupted. Yet they speak out anyway, compelled by what they've seen and what they believe it represents. They are not united by belief in aliens or secret technology, but by a shared experience of witnessing something enormous, silent, and unexplained in the skies above. Their voices echo across years, forming a chorus of concern that continues to grow louder, even as official channels remain quiet. The mystery of the Black Triangles has birthed two dominant schools of thought, each starkly different in implication, yet often overlapping in the public imagination. On one side are the conventional theories that these craft are human-made, the result of decades of black-budget aerospace programs operating under the radar of even the most vigilant oversight bodies. On the other are the unconventional interpretations, those that propose the triangles are not of this world at all, but of extraterrestrial origin, interdimensional technology, or something even stranger. The most widely circulated conventional theory is centered around the existence of a craft known as the TR-3B. This supposed aircraft, never acknowledged by any branch of the US military, is said to be a product of advanced propulsion research conducted by defense contractors under special access programs. The TR-3B is rumored to use a form of gravity-cancelling technology, specifically a nuclear-powered magnetic field disruptor, that allows the vehicle to drastically reduce its mass and inertia. Proponents argue this would enable the kind of silent hovering and high-speed acceleration reported by witnesses. This theory, while lacking official confirmation, is bolstered by decades of circumstantial evidence. The proximity of many sightings to Air Force facilities, particularly those known for experimental aircraft testing such as Groom Lake, Area 51, Edwards Air Force Base and Wright-Patterson AFB, adds weight to the hypothesis. Some suggest the triangles are successors to the now declassified stealth programs of the Cold War, natural evolutions of the B-2 Spirit bomber or the SR-71 Blackbird, operating in even deeper secrecy with capabilities decades ahead of public technology. However, several problems arise. The flight characteristics described, such as instant acceleration, hovering without propulsion and total silence, are not only beyond current known capabilities, but challenge the laws of inertia and thermodynamics. Even advanced stealth aircraft produce some noise, and their movements are governed by Newtonian physics. The Black Triangles appear to ignore these constraints altogether. If they are terrestrial, the level of technological suppression required to keep such innovations secret for decades borders on implausible. This leads to the more radical interpretations. Some theorists argue that the Black Triangles are not man-made at all, but are instead examples of non-human technology. The consistency of sightings across cultures and continents, often near the same types of infrastructure, military bases, nuclear sites, large cities, suggests a form of reconnaissance or monitoring. The behavior of the craft, slow, deliberate, indifferent to detection, gives the impression not of secrecy, but of control, perhaps even superiority. To these researchers, the triangles are not hiding from us. They simply don't care if we see them. Others take it a step further, suggesting these craft are not physical in the traditional sense. Theories involving interdimensional entities, simulation-based phenomena, or time travelers have found niche followings. These ideas are supported by sightings where craft appear to materialize and dematerialize without transition, or where observers describe a distortion of sound, light, or even time around the object. One recurring claim is that of missing time, observers losing minutes or even hours after watching a triangle pass overhead, with no recollection of what occurred during the gap. Skeptics argue that these extraordinary claims lack extraordinary evidence. They suggest misidentification of drones, weather balloons, or experimental aircraft explain much of the phenomenon. Yet skeptics often fail to account for the uniformity of the reports, the same shapes, the same silence, the same movements reported across eras and continents. Weather balloons don't hover motionless for minutes before vanishing at hypersonic speed. Drones don't black out city blocks or distort electromagnetic fields over entire neighborhoods. For now, both camps, those who believe in black-budget human tech and those who suspect something more otherworldly, remain unable to definitively prove their case. The government continues its policy of ambiguity, the sightings continue, and the Black Triangles remain exactly what they've always been, real, persistent, and unclaimed. The more they are seen, the less we seem to know. As the mystery deepens, it becomes impossible to ignore the global scope of the Black Triangle phenomenon. While the United States and Europe account for many of the most documented sightings, Similar reports have emerged from every continent, often displaying the same characteristics: triangular shape, low-altitude flight, silent movement, and a tendency to linger in proximity to strategic or populated areas. These global incidents suggest a coordinated presence, or at the very least, a repeating pattern of behavior that transcends national borders. In Canada, reports of black triangle craft have surfaced for decades, especially in the sparsely populated provinces of Manitoba and Alberta. In 2003, several residents of the small town of Carmen, Manitoba, described a massive dark triangle flying low over the rural landscape, so large and close that it obscured the stars above. One witness, a local truck driver, reported the object matching his vehicle's speed as it travelled down an empty highway, silently pacing him for several miles before veering off toward the horizon and vanishing without a sound. South America has its share of incidents as well. In 2015, multiple witnesses in São Paulo, Brazil, described a massive triangular formation of lights drifting above the city's outskirts. One group of witnesses, including a police officer and a local journalist, reported that the lights were not independent, but attached to a solid, black triangular mass. The sighting lasted over 10 minutes and was corroborated by amateur video footage later broadcast on Brazilian television. The footage, while grainy, matched previous descriptions: 3 distinct white lights forming a triangle with no apparent propulsion system or sound. In the Middle East, reports have circulated near US military installations. In 2006, service members stationed at an airbase in Qatar allegedly witnessed a large, low-flying black triangle passing silently above the base at night. Though no official report was ever released, the incident was later referenced in anonymous military forums and matches descriptions provided in other global encounters. Similar sightings have occurred near the Strait of Hormuz and in the skies above Baghdad during the Iraq War, where soldiers described strange triangular craft hovering silently over combat zones, moving in ways inconsistent with conventional drones or aircraft. Asia has its anomalies too. In 2011, multiple residents of the city of Xi'an in central China reported seeing an enormous triangular craft, dark and silent, hovering over an urban district for several minutes before accelerating skyward. Witnesses described a humming sensation, not heard but felt, similar to other global reports. State media never covered the incident, but videos and images surfaced briefly on social media before disappearing, likely suppressed by government censors. Africa and Australia, while having fewer recorded sightings, have nonetheless produced compelling accounts. In South Africa, a 1998 incident near the city of Pretoria involved several motorists pulling over to observe a massive triangle gliding overhead at low altitude. In Australia, an amateur astronomer in Western Australia captured time-lapse images in 2017 that appeared to show a triangular formation of lights moving silently across the sky in synchronized motion. While the images were inconclusive, the witnesses' account closely paralleled descriptions from the US and Europe. What ties these events together is not only the similarity in the objects observed, but the consistency in how governments and military entities respond or fail to respond. In most cases, there is no investigation, no public statement, and no follow-up. In the few instances where officials acknowledge the events, explanations are typically vague or unsatisfying. Whether due to secrecy, ignorance, or intentional suppression, the result is the same. The black triangles remain unexplained. The geographical spread also casts doubt on the theory that these are solely secret US military craft. While it's plausible that such technology could be tested in domestic airspace or even in allied nations under controlled circumstances, the repeated appearances over unfriendly or non-aligned regions raise serious strategic questions. If they are human, who is flying them, and why allow them to be seen at all? The possibility of a non-human origin becomes harder to dismiss when faced with decades of similar sightings across cultures, continents, and political systems, most of them involving people with no connection to one another, yet describing nearly identical experiences. Whether under the skies of Texas, rural China, or a Canadian prairie, the presence of these mysterious triangles suggests an intelligence that is observing, measuring, and moving through our world with purpose. The black triangles are not confined to borders. They have become a global phenomenon, ubiquitous, silent, and still unclaimed. Whatever their origin, they appear to be everywhere and yet nowhere, seen by many and understood by none. After decades of sightings, countless reports, and mounting fragments of data, one truth about the black triangles remains undeniable. They are real. Not in the speculative sense, but in the empirical. Thousands of witnesses across the globe have seen the same silent, massive structures drifting through the night sky. Pilots have watched them from their cockpits. Police officers have followed them across county lines. Soldiers have glimpsed them above war zones. And ordinary citizens in their quiet neighborhoods have stared upward in disbelief as something impossibly large hovered silently above their homes. They are witnessed, but never intercepted. Recorded on radar, but never tracked to a destination. Discussed in hushed tones by military insiders, but never formally acknowledged by those in power. The black triangles have become something more than a mystery. They are a mirror. A reflection of our unease, our suspicions, and our inability to trust the institutions that tell us what should or should not exist. Their silence, their impossible engineering, and their apparent indifference to human scrutiny raise questions that touch the foundations of science, secrecy, and belief. If these craft are human-made, the implications are staggering. It would mean that someone, whether a government entity, a private contractor, or a rogue actor, has developed propulsion and material technologies that are at least a generation beyond anything disclosed to the public. Technologies capable of overcoming inertia, generating silent lift, and operating with what appears to be unlimited energy efficiency. And if this is the case, it would also imply the existence of a parallel world of innovation, shielded from oversight, accountability, and the very idea of public interest. If, on the other hand, these craft are not human, if they belong to an intelligence not of this earth, then we are faced with an entirely different paradigm, one in which we are not alone, and never have been, one in which we are being watched, perhaps studied, by an intelligence that has mastered the skies with effortless superiority. Their triangular vessels move with the calm precision of surveyors, not invaders. They do not display hostility. They do not communicate. They do not land, but they are there, and they do not leave. There is a third possibility, perhaps more unsettling than either of the first two, that we do not know who controls them because who do know, whether human or otherwise, have no intention of telling us, that the silence is not just strategic, but existential, that the nature of the black triangles touches a truth so deep, so disruptive, that it must be buried beneath decades of obfuscation, ridicule, and denial. In the end, the black triangles remain just out of reach. We see their shape but not their pilots. We track their motion but not their origin. We feel their presence, immense and unknowable, above our heads and within our collective memory. They have been with us for longer than we understand, and they may still be here long after we're gone. Thanks for listening. This has been the UFO Files. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.